everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome to the video where I get to talk about post-grad life and what that's been like for me. So it is officially May 2024, which means I am now 3 years into postgraduate life. Kind of getting to the point where I'm like, am I even allowed to still call myself a post-grad? I'm not sure like how long you can still call yourself that. And every year that passes since graduating from college, I have wanted to make this video of what it's been like to live post-grad life, experience since graduating college. And every year I've kicked myself for not filming it, but also with every year that's passed, I have learned so much more. I feel like now that it is officially 3 years, I feel like it is an appropriate time to finally film this. I do have some notes on my phone. Please grab a snack, grab a drink, get comfortable, get cozy, because this is going to be a ramble kind of a video. Although I have notes, I'm sure I'm going to be talking all over the place just because I remember so vividly how I was feeling when my graduation was finally coming up. And obviously now having graduated and lived these past 3 years, I am no pro at adulting. I'm going to make that disclaimer right now. 3 years into being a post-grad does not make you a pro at being an adult. I'm going to tell you that much. However, if you're interested in hearing my thoughts and experiences, please stick around. I have a couple different categories that I have written down in this notes, and I will include them on the screen and make a little timestamp for each one. Before we dive into all of those topics, I first made a couple little notes of just some advice to people graduating currently before we dive into all of the other jazz. Because I remember, again, when it was coming up for my graduation, how stressed I was, how scared I was for the future. I know everyone's college experience is different, but the 4 years that I spent at my university, it really became home for me. It became my own little safe bubble of the world, is what I used to call it. I had my friends there, I had my whole life there. You spend 4 years living and breathing in this school, or potentially more, or potentially less, that it can be really hard to imagine your life after that. So my first thought and piece of advice to you if you are graduating is to take a breath. Your whole life will never be figured out, which I know sounds daunting, but treat it like how you first started college. For me, my motto in life is to take it one day at a time. That is how I treated my whole college career. That is how I've treated these past 3 years being post-grad. And that is my advice for you. Take a breath and take it one day at a time. Now that we've taken a moment to breathe about the fact that we're going to be graduating, my encouragement for you is to take time to celebrate the fact that you've graduated and celebrate this amazing accomplishment of this life goal that you've wanted to achieve. No matter what degree it was, no matter how long it took you to get, I think in today's society we tend to downplay our accomplishments if it's not done in a certain amount of time, or if this degree isn't as hard as another, or whatever the case may be. The fact that you crossed that finish line, that in itself is worth celebrating. So whatever that looks like to you, this is your accomplishment. Make sure you celebrate it how you want to celebrate it. Plus, that helps you to focus on something after graduation that's like still exciting and less daunting than the fact that you're about to enter into full-fledged adulthood, you know? My next piece of advice for you guys is that you do not need all the answers to keep moving forward. This is kind of vague. We will touch more about this later on in this video, but each decision you make into your adulthood, obviously, I think everyone wants to make the best decisions for themselves, but sometimes in life, you're just not going to know all the variables. You're not going to be able to know all the outcomes. Sometimes, in order for life to keep moving forward, you're just going to have to make a decision. And just the acceptance, allowing yourself to accept the fact that you're not going to know everything, I have found is a very important part of adulthood. The next piece of advice I wrote down was that now is the time to ask yourself, specifically outside of any academic realm, a couple different questions like, who are you? What are your passions? What do you want to see yourself accomplish in the next 6 to 12 months? I feel like a lot of times we get asked these questions specifically during our academic years, and that is to obviously help propel us into what do we see ourselves doing for the rest of our lives. But I think asking yourself these questions when academics is really no longer part of the picture, those answers tend to be way different than the answers you might give when you're in an academic setting. Because truly, it's 2 different chapters of life that you're entering. Especially if you grew up your whole life in academics and then went straight to college. Speaking from personal experience myself, that is what I did. Life changes a lot once academics is no longer in the picture. So asking yourself some of these deep-rooted questions, even if you think you might know the answers, taking time to be reflective, maybe even do some journaling, I think helps mentally prepare for what these next at least couple months is going to look like. Don't push yourself to be thinking 5-10 years down the road. I feel like that is very much taking the logic from an academic setting, dragging it into a professional setting of asking questions like 5 to 10 years. That's not to say I never asked myself those questions. I had ideas of what my life would look like in 5 to 10 years. And let me tell you, every year I've lived since being a post-grad, it has never been the case. So make it smaller. Focus on yourself right now. Focus on you are right now, graduating college. Where do you see yourself in the next couple months, maybe up to a year? What do you see yourself doing? What do you see yourself being passionate about? It's gonna keep your drive going after college. Again, speaking from personal experience, I had so much drive and so much passion, so much energy when I put into my academics that when academics was no longer part of the picture, I really didn't know where to put that kind of passion. So being freshly graduated from college, now is the time to ask yourself these types of questions, And then my last piece of advice for this section is to plan for fun things as well. Don't just focus on how to move forward in your career. Also focus on how you want to start living your full-fledged adult life. Take the time to visit old friends or even make plans with your college friends now for when you're going to see them next. I know for me, moving out from college, this was a big part in my process of accepting the fact that I would be leaving that place. These deep, beautiful bonds with my college friends, and the thought of not seeing them on a daily, weekly basis was killing me. That made me so scared. They were practically like family to me at that point. So I made it a point for me and my closest college friends to make sure that we had plans after college, even if it was months down the road, just something that we had semi-concrete that we all could look forward to, that we could all plan for, that it wasn't this indefinite question of, I don't know, I hope to see my college friends again. I have no idea when. Instead, before you leave college, if you have the chance, make those plans as soon as you can. That will help so much, I promise. And again, going back to what I said earlier, it helps you to focus on something exciting in the future because, again, speaking from personal experience, graduating college in a lot of ways felt like I peaked in life. I know I'm only 3 years post-grad and I still have plenty of life to live, but I know other people feel this way as well. Where it's like, I just did this amazing thing and I'm celebrating this amazing accomplishment. Will life ever feel as exciting and happy and beautiful again? Spoiler alert, it definitely does. So do yourself a favor and make sure you make fun plans as well. Alrighty, y'all, putting the advice section aside, we will dive into what life has been like for the past 3 years for me being a post-grad. The first category of notes I have is for finding a job / career / purpose post-college. First thing I wrote for this section is that it's going to be dependent on your career, obviously, how you will go about this. So obviously, this is going to be dependent on what you majored in and what your career field is going to look like, how you're going to go about this. I was a business management major, so for the School of Business, I had to do at least one internship during our 4 years, and that was to help propel you to find a job. Also at my college, we had the Career Center so that you could write resumes, you could practice interviews. They could also help you do some job searching, or if you had no idea what kind of job you wanted to do in your field, there were job coach professional type people who could help you to figure out where your major could be applied and what field you want to go into. Obviously, for some majors, it's going to be super obvious how you're going to get into that field. I will say for each major, I think something that can be easily forgotten is that, at least for most majors, there actually are quite a couple different types of jobs you can go into in that field. Obviously, some degrees, it depends. For my degree, I guess speaking from personal experience, mine's very broad, very vague. I can really take my degree and put it anywhere. So y'all, they did yard work all morning and now they're starting up yard work again. I am so sorry if throughout this whole video you guys can hear them doing yard work. So yeah, I can really only speak from my experience how I went with finding a job after college. I guess a general piece of advice if you're trying to find a job, really see what your college has to offer. Like I was saying with the Career Center, your school might have something similar, or if you have any classmates who also have connections in your field because they also studied in the same field. Sounds cheesy, but networking will help you a lot. Speak about my experience. For me, I had a full-time job lined up for me after my second internship I did in college. I did 2 internships. I did one during my sophomore year. It was a marketing internship, and I did one the summer of my junior year. It was a business management internship. That second one ultimately led me to my first full-time job after college. I also wrote, I would say definitely reach out to any connections you made during your time in college and see if they are willing to hire you, especially since they already have experience with you / know you / know your work ethic. It is a very common complaint for people who are getting ready to graduate college or recently graduated college, is that once you get your degree, you quickly find out that even though you have this degree and everyone was telling you how it's going to make you so much more desirable in the workplace, you're going to quickly find out that a lot of workplaces still want you to miraculously also have 5 to 10 years of work experience. Well, you just spent 4+ years getting a degree. So if you did any internships during your time in college, this is a great time to reach out to those people, especially if you enjoyed your internship and for the most part liked that company. I'd say those are typically pretty good signs that that might be a good first place to get your foot into the door just to get going. However, the last thing that I wrote for this section was that know that your job interests and career path might look a lot different than you originally intended. Personally, I'm already on job number 3 since graduating from college, and I am still trying to figure out what I'm passionate about in a professional sense. So going back to what I said earlier, my life has not gone how I planned at all. Like I said, my first full-time job I got from that internship, and it only took 3 months in of me working there to get burnt out, which led me to my second job. And I worked there for almost 2 years and then found burnt out again. Now finally I am on my third job, and it is officially 3 years since being a postgraduate. So yes, your life outside of academics and what you're passionate about, like with learning, can change a lot once it comes to real world. There's just a lot of different factors that you can read about, you can learn about, you can study about. Once those factors of life get applied to your own life and you see how well or maybe not how well you handle them, that's when your career paths and passions might change. So I feel very vulnerable sharing this side of my story with you guys, but it's the truth. This is how my postgraduate life has been. If it were up to me and that first job worked out and I stayed there for all these 3 years, I mean, obviously that would have been great in one sense, but in a whole nother sense, I don't know that I would have learned and experienced all of life that I have at this point. And I think that's kind of also part of being a post-grad, is constantly learning that your life is just not going to go how you may plan it to go. And it's constantly learning to be okay with that, and it's constantly learning how to accept that fact. And I find that the better you are at accepting it, the better you are at pivoting, just learning how to apply what you learn. So yeah, finding jobs, finding purposes, finding careers post-grad can be very difficult, especially depending on what field of work you're in. Just know that if you're struggling, whether it's finding a job right after college, finding that you don't like your job after you got it after college, wherever it is that you're struggling in this journey of getting a full-time job, that it's normal. I think it's very easy for us as a generation to start comparing ourselves to other people and seeing how well they're doing, especially people that you graduate with college. I mean, you're gonna find that you're still connected with these people through your different social apps, especially with LinkedIn. That one is obviously the one where everyone's gonna be posting their new positions, their new job titles, their promotions, the different work trips they get to go on. But what's important is just focusing on your own career path. Try not to fall into the trap of comparison. I know it's hard. I'm speaking from experience. No matter how it looks on social media, even if it's LinkedIn, which I know sounds super adult, but trust me, you will get there, I promise. No matter how it looks on no matter what social media app, everyone is truly on their own journey, and time is better spent if you put your energy towards your own journey and not worrying about anyone else's journey. Alrighty, moving on to finding friends post-college. First thing I have written down is that this is something I am still working on doing, even 3 years out from being a post-grad. I wrote that making friends after college is a lot different than how it was while in college or even before college. I also wrote that most of my new friends/acquaintances come from my workplaces at this point. And I feel like that's just kind of an obvious reality once you enter the workforce full time. Because where are you spending most of your time? It's going to be at work. And depending on what your workplace looks like, those are going to be the people you spend most of your time with. So it's kind of like school in that sense. I feel like it's very natural to make at least work acquaintances in this way, but to make like true friends outside of work, it's going to be a lot different than, like I said, in college or even before college. This is going to seem silly, and I'm sure you've heard it probably 10 billion times by this point now that you're reaching the point of graduating college, that after you graduate, you're no longer going to be in any place that is just your demographic of people. And I know it sounds cliche, but it's the truth. And friends that you're going to make moving forward are going to be from all different types of backgrounds, all different types of ages, all different life paths, life decision making, which is a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing to have a truly diverse set of friends in your circles. But when you're making friends that are coming from different life experiences or going through different phases of life, that's going to be a learning curve. Because when you make friends your whole life in the classrooms that you grow up in, whether it's from elementary school, from high school, from college, those time periods of your life are going to be very similar life phases. And then the second you graduate college, anyone could be in any life phase at any point, and that could be a new potential friend that you could be making. I know that sounds crazy, but it's the truth, and I'm sure some people watching this video can probably relate. That once you graduate college, even the friends that you had during college are all going to be experiencing different life phases than you are. Like me, currently speaking from personal experience, I am 24 years old. I am single. I have no children. I currently have a roommate, and that is my life. And that is my personal phase of life that I'm in right now. However, I have friends, both from high school, from before high school, or friends in college, who are in all different phases of life right now. They might be dating, they might be engaged, they might be married, some have children, some might have just gotten a pet, some might have just gotten their first apartment alone. Like, everyone is in such wildly different phases of life right now that making friends post-college is no longer necessarily going to be on the basis of you're very much experiencing the exact same thing, so that's what our basis of friendship is on before it gets like built into a more deeper, beautiful thing. Typically, your friendships post-college, especially the ones that you just start making at like your workplace, there's going to be a new, different type of baseline of why they became friends, you know, going to be based around the workplace that you're in until you either become friends outside of work or make friends that are outside of work. This leads me to the next point I have written down, which is to make friends outside of work requires potentially going out of your comfort zone and joining new clubs, hobbies, or interests that meet regularly. I wrote that my non-work friends I met through a young adult Bible study at my church. And like I said, this could potentially mean going outside of your comfort zone. And I know for me, to make these friends, even though I was attending something that I did regularly throughout high school and through college, which was Bible studies, it did require me to go out of my comfort zone because I went by myself. I did not know a single soul. Every single person I met there had the potential of becoming a friend. And it very much felt kind of like my first day at college where I did not know a soul, and every conversation I had with someone, I wanted to make sure I was putting an effort into because I really wanted to make some friends. That Bible study only met every other week. That wasn't even something that met weekly. I bet you if you went to a place that met weekly, whether it was like a hobby or something, you could probably make friends faster than I did. Because I honestly, again, 3 years out, I still haven't made a huge friend social circle yet. Like, I feel like I'm still establishing myself with where I'm living and with my daily routines, and just even trying to see these church friends on a regular basis. With all of our different schedules, it typically only happens like once or twice a month. I think that's kind of another point of like a reality check when it comes to friends outside of college, or I should say post-college. That the reality is we're all going to have such wildly different schedules because we don't work at the same workplace. So to get everyone's schedules aligned is going to be a much more rare occurrence than the easiness that you had in college when it was just like, you could just quickly text your friend, they can meet you up at your dorm, you guys could meet at the library or the local cafe, and like that planning could have been done literally a half hour before you wanted to meet with them. You know what I mean? Post-grad life requires lots of intentionality, I think is a good word when it comes to friends, both with your new friends that you're making and the friends that you had before post-grad life. The last thing I wrote for this section is that just know that at points it's going to be very lonely compared to life at college, and that is okay. I wrote that it took me 1.5 years to finally make friends, my church friends. And even still, we all have wildly different schedules, so it's not like I can see them all the time like how you can see your friends in college. And that is just the reality of life. Of course, this whole part of this video is going to be really heavily dependent on how much social time you might even need or require. For some people, only seeing friends once or twice a month is probably more than enough. And for others, I'm sure you're looking at me right now like, girl, what? I'm gonna need to make a lot of friends in order to be having any social life. And it just depends on what you need, truly. I know that for me, I really prioritize fewer, deeper friendships. And if I have spent years building friendships, especially the friends that I made during college or even before college, those are the ones I tend to pour my energy to the most because those fulfill me the most. They make my love tank the most full. And obviously I know that they will stick by my side for a long time to come because they already have. And I think that's something that I am currently learning as a post-grad, that It's also okay to just make acquaintances, and it's okay that those acquaintances aren't like your everything type friends. I think that's a hard pill for me to swallow, in all truth, is that friends post-college, they're not necessarily going to be your everything like how your friends were before. It might just be let's go grab a coffee kind of friend, or they might just be let's play a game together kind of friend, or whatever other chill social activity that you like to do with your friends. Really, that's okay, because that might be what it takes to get your social tank filled if you require a lot of friend time. So yeah, I'm sorry if these notes are all over the place. I try to make them as orderly as possible with these different sections. I feel like there's gonna be so much in this video that I forget to say or will want to have said, so I might make another video like this in the future too. But yeah, just overall know that when it comes to the friendship department post-college, it's going to be hard and it's going to be okay. Which sounds counterintuitive, but truly I think both things can exist because, again, for that first year and a half, granted, during part of that, I was in transition of going to my second job. It was one of the loneliest years I've experienced. And I'm not saying that to scare anyone. It really was. Like, all the friends that I had in college, like, we all, like, spread out. And, like, growing up the way I did and having moved as many times as I have, I'm used to that to some extent. Like, I'm used to not always being close to my best friends. I'm very much used to the long distance friendship type of way of being with friends, and that's fine. But I think during that year and a half, even though I think it was hard for me, it definitely was hard for me. I'm not gonna say I think. I know it was hard for me. It taught me so much about myself in ways that I can't describe, especially when it just comes to being okay with being alone and how to fill up your own tank by yourself, even though you're alone. Now, having been post-grad for 3 years now, I can genuinely say with my whole heart, if you've seen a couple of videos on my channel, off days from work, especially if I get them completely to myself and I get to do whatever I want that day, those are some of my favorite days of all time. And if you were to tell Sarah that, especially Sarah while she was graduating college, she would think you're absolutely crazy. The way that Sarah, who just graduated college, was an extrovert to a fault. I think truly I was an ambivert, but just like the thought of being alone and ever spending any alone time and ever trying to make myself happy during my alone time, y'all, the way that that used to scare me, I used to sob, especially when my graduation was coming closer and closer. I was sobbing at the fact that I did not know what my life would look like and how would I live life without constantly having friends to spend most of my time with. It was a hard transition. It was a reality that I did not feel ready to face. But now being 3 years past that, I can just say how immensely proud I am of all the growth that I've done, and just truly how at peace I feel when I fill up my own tank without the expectation of anyone else having to fill it up. That's not to say that I don't love the friends that I've made now. I'm so happy that I've finally made at least a couple friends here where I live that I get to see on a semi-regular basis, and I'm so beyond thankful that I still have all those deep friendships that I've had from before. It's just that life looks different than how it did in college, and it's not that one's necessarily better than the other, it's just that this is a part of life. It's a part of growing. It's hard, it's uncomfortable, it's not fun at times. Just know that in the end, you will be okay, I promise. And I know that's so much easier to hear and to say than to truly believe it in your soul, because trust me, there were just so many days during that first year of postgrad that were so lonely and hard for me. There were days that I didn't know how I was going to make it through. So as someone who is 3 years out, still not a pro at adulthood, please let me be the one to tell you that it will be okay. One day it'll all make sense. One day you will make more friends. One day you might just learn to be okay being your own best friend. And I think that's actually a really beautiful way to wrap up this segment of this video. Making friends post-college can be hard, but from personal experience, I think one of the greatest lessons I've learned in friendship since college is how to be a friend to myself. And that's just not something that Sarah during college could have ever foreseen. And that sounds so dramatic, but it's the truth. I'm not lying to y'all when I say this is me in the most vulnerable way possible, trying to explain how much I did not want to ever learn what it was like to be okay with being alone. That sounded so lonely. And even coming out of my mouth right now, it sounds like such a lonely, depressing thought. But I promise you guys, it's not. It's a beautiful lesson to learn. Or maybe this is coming from a place and it does not resonate with you because this is a lesson that you've already learned. But for me personally, this was a lesson that I had to learn, and now being 3 years out and seeing that I have learned that lesson, that's such a beautiful piece of growth to me that I'm just going to treasure so much. So Moving on to the next section. The next one I have is finding balance post-college. For this, I have one long note, so bear with me as I read it. I wrote that I've heard you have to treat post-grad life kind of like two different things. One, like you just started college all over again. You have to get super involved in order to meet people and make friends. And you have to learn what it's like to balance and schedule your life all over again. And two, you have to treat it like you are starting adulthood at year 0 of your life. When you are first born into this world, you don't know how to eat, live, etc. Adulthood, especially post-grad life, is very similar. When you first graduate, you will most likely not know what it's like to enter into your field of work full-time, how to balance that with a social life, and how to budget and cook for yourself every week. So, for example, I'm now 3 years post-grad, so I look at it as an adult that is 3 years into learning how to live an adult life. This helps me to give myself grace, and a lot of it for not knowing how to do certain things at this point and just trying to learn. So I know that's a lot, so let's first talk about the first point. The first point we heavily talked about in the past section, and I think that's just a really good way to summarize what it's like to make friends post-college, is again, treating like life is college all over again. Treating like this is your first day on campus, doing the research and the time to put yourself out there, meet people, get involved in whatever activities you want to. Maybe they're activities you've never done before, maybe they're activities you did do in college or high school, or maybe they're even activities you did as a kid and you haven't done since you were a kid and you've been wanting to do again just for fun. The first couple years into post-grad life, personally anyway, I still feel like are and can be, in a good way, still selfish years for yourself, where you still get to learn about yourself. You still get to learn, what do I like to do? What did I actually enjoy doing and I haven't done in years? And maybe that's a way that I can meet new people in this phase of my life. So yeah, treat it like college, treat it like you are going to that activities fair. If you can remember that time during your freshman year where you were super anxious and all it took was just a little bit of courage to walk up to a booth and to write down your school email, treat it like it's during that time of your life where it's truly up to you. You have to put yourself out there. It's not a classroom where there's just going to be people readily available for you to talk to. You're going to have to actively make it a point to leave your house, leave your apartment, leave your workplace, and meet people outside of those environments. And then moving on to the second point, this is something that me and my roommate talk about a lot actually, and I think it's been very pivotal in our learning of how to be gracious with our adult selves, because I think at every phase in life there's this expectation that you're just supposed to magically know everything. And again, spoiler alert, there's just no magic age in life where you're just suddenly going to know everything. That is literally the whole point of life, is that you're experiencing life for the first time. So obviously you're not going to know how to do what you need to do in that phase of life. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. So like for me, I'm a year 3 adult, a year 3 post-grad adult, if you will. Because for some people, let me make this disclaimer because I didn't make one at the beginning of the video. Some of these takeaways might also apply to those who maybe just graduated high school. Maybe for those who have no plans of going to college. This is not a video to shame anyone who did not go to college, who did not complete college, anything like that. This is meant to be a video specifically talking to those who have graduated college, but if any of this is applicable to you, please just ignore the college phrasing and insert whatever phase of life that you're in. Maybe for you, adulthood year number 1 started the day after you graduated high school. Maybe you entered the workforce full-time at 18. Maybe it was sooner, maybe it was later. That being said, I did not enter the workforce full-time until I graduated college. So for me, I'm a year 3 adult is what I like to call myself. And so what would we treat a year 3 human? You know what I mean? A year 3 human is a toddler in their retrospect of their phase of life. They have some bearings, but truly they are still fascinated by the world. They truly don't know anything that's going to happen to them from one day to the next. Spoiler alert again, that's going to happen to you in every phase of life. And truly at that point in your life, all you can do is focus on the fundamentals of what is keeping you there. I have family, I have friends, I have my faith, my apartment, I have my roommates. And I would say those are my fundamentals. Because for me, again, being on job number 3, I can't even call a job a fundamental at this point. Like, that is something that I'm still exploring, still navigating, still trying to figure out, still trying to do soul searching, still trying to find purpose in. So finding balance post-college is going to be an accumulation of all of that. It's going to take accepting the fact that schedule is going to be wildly different than your college schedule. It just is. That's a fact of life. Being full-time at a job and typically only having 1 to 2 days off a week to do whatever you want to do, that's going to wildly change your perspective on life. Trust me on that. Your workload, especially depending on the field that you're going into, is going to be wildly different than what your workload looked like in college. And that's just a fact of life. again, learning about something, reading about something, studying about something. I love academics. But again, putting that aside, that is wildly different than actually applying those things and doing them in real life. So finding balance, it's really a hard term. I go back and forth on it, honestly. I think it's this beautiful ideal that we hold up, that we want to attain, of this ideal of what our lives would look like. And to some extent, I think that's a beautiful thing. I think that's a beautiful thing that we dream for. I think that's a beautiful thing that we work towards. But also, in the same vein, I think it's also a thing that is going to ever escape us. I know there's a word that I'm looking for, but I can't find. Because balance is really just not inherently an attainable thing. In every phase of your life, you're going to have different things that you're focused on. There are in some phases of life that's academics, maybe it's family, maybe it's work, maybe it's your social life, maybe it's personal growth. You're going to have different priorities. The word itself, priority, means that you're prioritizing something over another thing, which means there's inherently not a balance. Does that make sense? So I think finding balance post-grad, I think it's hard, because I think from a hopeful standpoint, I think it's a beautiful thing for us to want to attain. I think it's a beautiful thing for us to dream about. But I think in a realistic and applicable sense, I don't know that it's an achievable thing. And I don't think that's a bad thing to accept that fact. I think it's better to accept the fact that we're all human and we're all gonna have different priorities at different phases of our life, and accept yourself for the priorities that you're currently focused on in this phase of life. And that's going to be different for every single person. Honestly, my priorities have changed every single year of these past 3 years, and that's just the reality of it. And I would argue in this third year, I would probably be biased and say this is the most balanced I have found myself to be in. But even with that statement, I know myself, and I know that means that's because I'm prioritizing the things that really make me happy in this phase of my life, and I'm not prioritizing things in other areas of my life. And that's not truly technically in the most dictionary sense of the word balance. So allow yourself to let go of the fact that it doesn't have to be the end goal. Post-grad life does not mean you have to have balance. And it's not going to be balanced all the time, I promise. And the last section of notes that I have written down is finding burnout post-college. This I did touch on earlier. I wrote that I've had 2 major burnout periods since graduating college, and both of them were related to jobs I was at prior to the one I'm at now. I also wrote, for those who found a lot of personal validation through academics, it can be hard and debilitating to no longer receive constant, measurable marks on how well you're doing at what you're doing. The most I would get at any job I've had since is a thank you, or a you're doing really well, which is great, coming from a words of affirmation girl, but does not give you a measurable way to see if you're doing well at adulting. And spoiler alert, no one truly is doing well at adulting. It's more about doing whatever works for you. Yeah, I've definitely hinted at my different burnout periods I've had since college. I don't know that I've delved deeply into either. The first one was from my first job post-college. I worked there for literally 3 months and hit one of the hardest burnouts I've ever had. I had to move back in with my parents, and that was a hard pill for me to swallow. I think that's a hard pill for a lot of college kids. It's the reality that you might have to move home again. Whether it's right after college or after a job doesn't work out, whatever it may be, that is a reality for a lot of people. And I did not want it to be a reality for me. I have always been a very independent person, but getting to that level of burnout and how low I was feeling in life at that time, it literally took me 6 months of living at my parents' house to A, find a job. Let's start there. And B, figure out what my next phase of life would look like, because that was the job that I got right after college. This was supposed to be my full-time job for what I thought would be a couple years. And that just ended up not being the case. And it was a really hard part of my life. Again, it was hard, it was lonely, I did a lot of learning, I did a lot of soul searching. Being on this end of that story, I can say that I've become a much better person because of it. Learned a lot and I've grown a lot. But that's not to negate the fact that when you're going through it, it's going to be hard. It's not going to be fun. So that was the first burnout that I went through. And then the second one was actually semi-recent. It was the last job I was at before the one I'm at now. And very similarly, the job just wasn't working out. I was at it for about 2 years. And just like my first job, I was putting my all into it. And like I said earlier, if you got a lot of academic validation from seeing how well you did in a class, because it was constant and it was measurable, it's a hard transition to go from that to then full-fledged adulthood, where jobs just don't really do that. They might do review every 6 months or once a year, and maybe you might get a thank you from your boss, and maybe you might get recognized at your office. And those are great things, but as an employee who's motivated by knowing that they're doing a good job, it's a lesson that I'm honestly still learning how to overcome and to be okay with, because it's just the reality of adulthood. That's the reality of, I would probably argue, most workplaces. I remember learning about this in college. I remember learning, again, because I was a business management major, I remember learning about how one of the main reasons people leave their workplaces, no matter what field of work they're in, isn't attached to the money or the proposition of a new position or anything like that, but rather the majority of people leaving is typically tied to the fact of discontentment in the workplace and not feeling valued, and how most people would stay in their jobs if they truly not only felt purpose in their positions, but felt that their work was recognized. And I remember learning about that, and I was just like, man, that's going to be so good for me to know since I want to go into management. It was good for me to know in the last 2 management positions I had. It was good for me to know. However, I failed to realize while learning that is that that also would apply to me. I'm not coming on here to speak ill will about those past places, because truly this video is not the time and place for that. And I truly wish nothing but the best for those people. But for me personally, this is the journey that I've been on post-grad, and it's hard. It's no joke, y'all. It's just a harsh reality of life, is the fact that we live in a world where in order to live, you have to make money. And at least in America, making money means working a full-time job that takes up the majority of your life. And I just think finding burnout post-college is a very real reality for people. Moving through the burnout is never a fun process. It's a very hard process. I find that it's very similar to the stages of grief, in my personal experience anyway. I find that I don't fully get through the burnout until I hit that last 5th stage of acceptance. And I think a big part of that journey is making sure that you talk to your friends, especially the ones that you made through college, and see where are they at in their professional careers, you know? Like, are they happy? Are they content? Are they still in the same workplace that they started after college? Because you might find a couple friends who feel very similarly to you, and getting to talk to people who are going through similar phases of your life, I find helps a lot. So I did that with a couple of my friends, and those conversations made me feel more seen than I had in months, in ways that no past boss ever could, because they're not in the same phase of life that I am. They don't know what it's like to be me, going through these positions and trying to manage burnout while staying in these positions and trying to make the most of them and putting your all into them, and then realizing that you are neglecting yourself, and the only way to get out of this burnout is to accept the fact that you deserve better. That is a hard truth to hit. You are going to need people in your circle who can help you get through that. If you don't have anyone in your circle, please let me be the one to say that you are going to get through it. I promise. Like I've said throughout this whole video, it's not going to be fun at all times. It's not. That doesn't mean you can't get through it, and that doesn't mean you're not going to grow to be a better person because of it. Because truly and genuinely, I know I've said it already in this video, being 3 years out and seeing myself go through all of the life that I've gone in these past 3 years since graduating college, A, not anything that I ever planned, B, truly hard at some points, but C, I have become just such a better person because of it, truly. And that is not me trying to step on some soapbox or something and like toot my own horn or something. That's not me trying to come from a place of like, you just need to level up, bro, and you just need to get onto your adulting game. Like, that's not me trying to like perpetuate grind and hustle culture or something. Like, that's not what I'm trying to get of this from y'all. That's not what I'm trying to like portray to you guys. I'm just saying that even if any of these sections that I've talked about through this video are hard or will be hard for you during your post-grad life, know that it's still going to be okay, is the main gist of the whole thing. And again, to wrap up this specific section of this video, if you have anybody in your circles that you can talk to about it, please talk to them about it. I didn't for the longest time because I felt so much embarrassment from it. I'm trying not to cry in this video, and I keep getting this close to crying because it's just it's a topic that I'm so passionate about, because it's something that I'm currently going through, and in the sense of like being a postgrad, like that's something I'm currently going through. And I felt so much embarrassment, especially with this second time of burnout, because I really wanted to believe at my core that it would only take one hard job, and it would only take one time of going through burnout, and it would only take one time of me feeling like I'm not enough and pouring my all into a workplace for me to find that right workplace, for me to find my self-worth, for me to learn my lesson. I was so, I say this in a loving way, naive to think that I would only ever have to experience that one time. And once I finally climbed out of that one time, life would be smooth sailing. And it's a hard but beautiful thing about life. And it's a humbling thing about life. You're going to find time and time again that life is going to teach you these lessons, because out of these lessons, if you allow it to, you can learn so much from them. It's hard and it's messy, but it's beautiful. And I was so embarrassed with this last time, and it's something that I'm still processing and getting through, and I really recommend talking to people about it, and I think that will help with the healing process of the burnout, with it being my second time dealing with it post-college. It's something that requires acknowledging, it requires finding yourself that you're not alone in this feeling, which is why I'm so beyond grateful for the friends that I have in my life, truly. Both ones that I made before college, during college, and also after college. There's a couple friends, especially from my college years, who went through this similar phase and feelings. And after talking with them multiple times about this topic of burnout with career choices and not having passion and not knowing what to do with your life, and those conversations helped me immensely, and I just can't recommend that route of healing more. Especially if you come from a place of being your own worst critic and having negative self-talk, I think it's important to surround yourself with people who will not only take you out of that place, but who will remind you they're right in it with you. And that's what I hope this video comes across as, that if you don't have those people in your circle, I'm right here with you. I am also going through these same feelings. So yeah, that kind of wraps up that section of the video. And yeah, that's all the sections that I wrote down for this video. Again, like I said earlier, I'm sure there's so much more that I could have talked about with this topic. I'm going on with an hour and 10 minutes of already filming just those sections alone, so if I can think of any more, or if you guys have any other things you'd like to hear from a post-grad, please feel free to leave them in the comments. And I just feel super passionately about this topic because college for me was mostly a safe place for me to not just learn about the career that I wanted to attain, but learn about myself, learn about who I hope to be, and applying that same hopeness to post-grad me. It's hard, it's messy, but it's beautiful. If I was to describe post-grad life in 3 words, hard, messy, beautiful. I can't believe it's been 3 years, y'all. Like, come June, I'm gonna be 25, y'all. I'm going to be a quarter of a life old. That is crazy. I was 21 when I graduated college, y'all. 21 years old. I'm 24. Y'all, that is crazy. I am so beyond grateful, blessed, and privileged to have attended college. That is something else I meant to start the video off with. I fully recognize that there are many people in this world who do not get that privilege, so I am very aware of how privileged I am in that sense. And I thank God every day for giving me these life experiences that have led me to this point in my life, truly. If it wasn't for college, I wouldn't have the roommate I have now. If it wasn't for college, I wouldn't be living the life I'm living right now, which is crazy to think. This isn't the life I ever pictured myself living after college. And I think that's just a testament to God's beautiful plan and timing. It's not something I ever imagined, but something I now can fully appreciate and wouldn't change. Do I know my full story? Absolutely not. Do I have clarity in what I will be doing for the next 10 to 20 years? Absolutely not. Am I still trying to find passion? Am I still trying to find purpose? Am I still trying to figure out what I want to do with my life? Absolutely. Absolutely I am. Getting a college degree does not mean you're suddenly immune to these questions. It does not mean you're suddenly getting a pass at life and you don't need to ever do soul searching ever again and never continually relearn yourself and relearn what it is to be you and relearn what makes your soul feel alive, what gives your soul passion, you know? So yeah, post-grad life is hard, messy, and beautiful. And I cannot thank God and everyone else in my life who has helped me to make it to these 3 years post-grad. And that one of those people include me too. So I feel like that is enough sappiness for one video. I hope you guys enjoyed. It's so hard for me to close this video because I just feel like there's so much more I want to say on this topic. And it doesn't mean I can't make another video, I know, but I guess just like with what I'm saying with post-grad life, I guess that's how I should leave this video. Accepting the fact that this video is going to be hard, messy, and beautiful in its own way. So yeah, as always, I hope you guys are having a good day, but if you're not, that's okay too. I will catch you guys in the next one. Bye!